Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Oklahoma City Metropolitan Area Public Schools Trust. First order of business is to approve the minutes of the August 3rd, 2010 meeting of the Trust, and I would recognize the motion to that effect.
So moved.
Been moved. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Any questions? We'll vote. We now have financial reports. First, we're being asked to ratify the Oklahoma City Metropolitan Area Public Schools Trust payments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You'll find that there's not an obligation report that's included this month. As we do each fiscal year, we're closing out those reports, and so the end-of-year reports will be brought to a future trust meeting, but there is a small delay as we get those prepared. What you do have on your agenda today is the ratification of the trust payments. There's 61 tax payments that exceed $7.6 million for the period July 14th to August 10th, and there's 6 bond payments exceeding $223,000.
Are there any questions?
Move approval.
It's been moved. There a second? We'll vote. Next item, we're being asked to approve the preliminary report for Monroe Elementary School Project ES 53. We have a presentation?
We do. We do have a single presentation for you today. We do have Omar Corey here from Moda Architecture to make this presentation. I think the one thing that I'll bring to your attention as he gets ready to make the project meets all the design requirements. However, the cost estimate does exceed the project budget for 2 primary reasons. The first is a fire suppression system was not originally anticipated as a part of this project, and it is required. Also, as a part of the project requirements that we previously approved, there was a computer lab that was omitted and also has to be included. And so those are contained in this preliminary report. And I'd like to invite Omar up to make the presentation and answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. As Eric said, I'm Omar Corey with Moda Architecture, and I'm pleased to present to you today the preliminary design for Monroe Elementary. The scope of this project was to renovate, repair, modernize all existing spaces, as well as add approximately 7,000 square feet of new area to meet the new instructional program, as well as converting the existing building into a 437-student pre-K through 6th grade elementary school. As with any project, there are numerous design factors that we go through in the design phase. And for this particular building, the major one was to enhance the existing architecture on the outside of the building with the new addition and not to compete with what's going on in that building. We also looked at making the building a little bit more efficient in terms of circulation and the distances between the learning spaces and the common areas of the building, and you'll see that on the plan as well. And last but not least, looking at it from a standpoint of construction, how we can minimize the impact and the disruptions during the construction for the school, for the students, and the faculty. There were approximately 38 site and facility assessment items, 31 by the staff, and then the rest of them were done from the design team. And as much as Lisa and Mark would like me to go through them one item by one item, I've kind of condensed them all to a small version and just looked at the major components. From the standpoint of the site, the existing building envelope, we're replacing all the existing windows, the single pane windows with the double pane window system. We're taking out the existing roof and replacing that as well. It's about the life of the building, so it needed to be done. We're expanding the existing parking and making the student pickup drop-off area a little bit more efficient, adding ADA accessibility to the front entrance of the building with a ramp, and modifying the existing playground. There's some drainage issues there that we needed to address in this phase of the project. As far as the facility on the interior, we're looking at a wholesale facelift, new paint, new ceilings, new doors, new flooring. And as Eric mentioned, we do have to install a fire suppression system for this particular building. As I said before, we're trying to enhance the existing architecture. We're not trying to compete with it. What you're looking at here is the existing building on the left side of that arch and the new addition on the right side, so it kind of blends in and meshes in with the existing architecture. The new windows would give us an item that we can renew the look of the building on the existing side of it, so that the entire fenestration system would match with new doors on the exterior and the interior as well. The floor plan turns out to be this way. That's the proposed. We basically grouped the second grade through the sixth grade on the north wing, with the common learning spaces and the common spaces of the school in the middle wing, and then pre-K through first on the south wing, as well as the addition of the new administration wing that we relocated. From a standpoint of finishes, we've picked 3 accent colors to go with a field color. And the accent colors, as you can see, is the blues and the reds. Throughout the hallways, we are introducing those colors on the walls as well, and in some areas in the laminates and the paints of certain furniture inside each classroom, or the cafeteria, or the library system. So wherever you have an accent color near a door or at the door of a classroom, it kind of brings it into each classroom from the hallway, and that's basically the accent color. And then we go inside the classroom and make each one of those components a little different, as you'll see here in a little bit. What we're looking at here is the administration area, and then 2 shots of the interior of the building. You can start seeing what the colors are going to look like. And then the 2 shots is actually of the entry vestibule. It's going to be a new secured entry vestibule for the students and the visitors. If you're asking yourselves, what is that clock doing on that floor? There's an existing clock in one of the rooms that was built, that was part of the history of the school, and we had some comments from the community and the staff that they like to keep it. However, the material, we can't keep the material. It's vinyl asbestos tile, so the thought was to bring that historical part of the existing building and bring it into the new addition and making it kind of a focal point as you enter in the building. And I have yet to figure out why it's 9 o'clock. School back then for me didn't start at 9, but here's some shots of the interior of the building. Typical classroom, the one on the top right, as I said before, we're bringing in, that's the red accent color coming into the school or the classroom, and then we paint some of the existing metal, either an accent color or a color to match it, and you can see some of the items where if it's a vinyl or a plastic laminate area on the countertops, it accents that color as well, but we're using the same colors from that palette. And then below is the media center with the various heights of shelving for the books, and then using the same pattern or the same color tile and palette to bring it into the media center. As far as the construction schedule, the schedule that we're in the yellow bar. We're a little ahead of schedule based on today's meeting. We have the completion of the second phase to actually be done in March, and the construction to start in May of next year. I think we're about 2 months too conservative, so we may be able to start in the middle of the next term rather than beginning of the summer for next year. And finally, the cost summary. Our fixed limit of construction is approximately $2.955 million, and currently we're about $300,000 over based on what Eric had mentioned before, primarily due to the additional square footage that we needed to add, as well as the fire suppression system. That concludes it. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Other questions?
I do have a question. Forgive me, I'm not familiar with the school. Can you tell me when the original school was built?
It was done in 2 editions, one in 1949 and then the other one was in 1956.
Okay, given that, do you think we're going to have any architectural challenges as we move forward with this renovation?
There's always going to be some sort of challenge because we don't know what's behind some of the walls that we're tearing out. So there's always going to be some issue. We've done a pretty comprehensive survey of what's there now. Unless there's something that's hidden that we don't know anything about, that's where it's going to be an issue.
Okay. Was this part of the early start packages? Was this on that list? Do you remember?
I honestly don't recall, but I mean, I can follow up and check for sure, but it's possible that it has. We have done a number of those, and it could have been.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? I'd recognize a motion to approve this preliminary report.
So moved.
Been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. We'll vote.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is to approve the preliminary report for the Early Start Fire Alarm Group 3, 10 different schools project, ES 74.
So to answer your question, Monroe's included on this list. So it's not one that we've done yet, but it is one that's included on this list of 10. C.H. Guernsey is the engineer of record on this project. We have not included a formal presentation for this item. It is a fire alarm early start. The project is within the budget, and that is one of the goals of the preliminary report, was to validate the budget, make sure that we've been out to the schools to visit each, work with the fire marshal, make sure that the appropriate plans and installation would be made. Following approval today, we would authorize them to proceed with final plans and specifications for bid.
Any questions? Seeing none, I'd recognize a motion to approve.
So moved.
Been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. We'll vote. Next item. Adopt a resolution ratifying the issuance of and approving addendas numbers 1 and 2, awarding the contract base bid only to Atlas General Contractors, LLC, in the amount of $4,650,000, and approving contract and bonds for Sequoia Elementary School, and authorizing execution of the documents upon receipt. Project ES 55.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The bids on this project were received on August the 3rd, and the low bid exceeded the actual PIP by over $330,000. When the architect came and made the final presentation, it was GSB. There was an understanding then at that point that the project was going to be about $250,000 over, and that was based on their final estimate of cost. And so even though we are speaking of a number that is about $300,000 over, there was already certain indications that it was going to be over based on the bid market and some of the indications that they were receiving early on. We do have contingency funds available, and we are recommending that we proceed on this project. It's very close to the architect's estimate, and I can answer any further questions that you might have.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, I would recognize a motion to approve this resolution.
Move approval.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. We'll vote. Next item. Adopt a resolution ratifying the issuance of and approving addendas numbers 1, 2, and 3, awarding the contract base bid only to W.L. McNatt and Company in the amount of $13,320,000, approving contract and bonds for Northwest Classen High School, and authorizing execution of the documents upon receipt. Project ES 78.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we've mentioned before, we are bidding nearly every week in August, and bids on this project were received last Tuesday, August the 10th. We had numerous bidders again on the project. There were 5 total. The low bid, 13.3, was about $400,000 over the estimate. But again, as we received the final plans estimate from Crafton, Toll, and Sparks as a part of that presentation, it was estimated at nearly $380,000 over. And so it's very close to the architect's estimate. I think we were optimistic to believe that maybe the bid market might have been improved, but it is very close to that. Low bid is by W.L. McNatt, and we are recommending approval.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, I'd recognize a motion to approve.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. We'll vote. Next item, we have change orders. First change order is to approve change order number 4 for Cesar Chavez Elementary School, a decrease of $486.94, project ES 18.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The project at Chavez is going very well in its construction phase. It's nearly 70% complete. This change order includes 6 items. Item number 6 you'll see is a credit where the parking lot, what we'll call the section, the thickness of the asphalt is being reduced to what we'll call a typical section. It was over-designed, and this was a credit that we were able to realize as a part of this change order. But with that, it's allowed the architect to make certain adjustments for an overall savings on this change order of $486.94. Total changes to date at Chavez is 3.1%. There's no additional days associated with these changes, and we are recommending approval.
Questions? I'd recognize a motion for approval.
So moved.
It's been moved. Or second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. We'll vote. Next item is to approve change order number 2 for Fillmore Elementary School, an increase of $18,962, project ES 33.
Thank you. Fillmore is 45% complete, and the largest item on this change order is item number 1, which was some additional asbestos that was discovered in a kitchen corridor. It's $15,000 of the $18,900 that's a part of this change. Total changes to date, and this will be number 2 included, is less than 1%. There's no additional days, and we're recommending approval.
Questions? Recognize a motion for approval.
Move approval.
Then moves or second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. We'll vote. All approved. Next item, approved change order number 1 for Hillcrest Elementary School, an increase of $31,498, project ES 43.
This is our first change order for Hillcrest. It's 45% complete. There's 5 items. The 2 most significant are items numbers 3 and 4. There's some modifications to a slab that is required. There is some poor compaction that we're realizing out at this site that's requiring some additional material. There's also a plumbing modification that's been required by code. Total changes on this is less than 1%. 27 extra days are also being requested by the contractor. The majority of those are weather-related due to some of the early summer rains that we saw. We are in agreement with these and recommend approval.
Are there any questions? I recognize a motion for approval.
Move approval.
Then moves or second? Second. We'll vote. Approved. Next item, approved change order number 7 for Putnam Heights Elementary School, increase of $41,017, project ES 28.
Putnam Heights is nearing completion. It's 95% complete. There's 8 items on this change order. There's no additional days, and the most significant are item number 2, additional guardrails that are been requested and are going to be installed. Item number 4, which is an electrical room modification, that is some additional perimeter waterproofing to ensure that water does not infiltrate that space. Total changes, including this one on the project, are just under 4%, and we, again, recommend approval.
Are there questions? Is there a motion for approval?
Move approval.
Then moves or second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. We'll vote. Motion passes. Next item. Approved change order number 4 for Shotler Elementary School, an increase of $54,687, project ES 38.
Thank you. This is our final change order for your consideration this afternoon. There's 14 items. Item number 3, item number 6, 10, and 11 are all the most significant that I might bring your attention to. There are some wall modifications for expansion joints. There's some additional roof access ladders that are required. And on the second page of your memo, you'll find that there's some plaster restoration and some flooring modifications, again, as a part of the renovation of that historic building that are also necessary. Total changes to date are going to be just under 5%. We're comfortable with this because we're nearing completion of the project. I'll also call your attention, there is an error, typographical error on the contract time, which you'll find on page 3. It lists the contract completion as May 20th. However, it's actually December 31st of this year. So we are on schedule for that project to complete by the end of the year. We recommend approval of the change order.
Are there any questions?
How far along are they on the project?
About 85%.
Other questions? Yes.
Particularly the flooring modifications, I'm wondering if that could have been anticipated by the architect, and if not, why not?
I would need to look more specifically into this, but what we're finding in a lot of the historic buildings is as they pull up some of the older asbestos tile flooring, what's underneath that floor is in a condition that's not compatible with some of the specified materials. And so as we look into some of these and we talk about floor tiles and compatibility with some of the existing conditions, there are some modifications that are being made. In this case, they have the ability for a marginal increase in cost to include a more durable system, I think, for this particular installation. So it's being recommended for your approval. It's obviously not necessary for the project. We could probably, in this case, stick with those existing materials. But this is coming by recommendation of the architect, and we are in concurrence.
Other questions? Is there a motion for approval?
Move approval.
Then moves or second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. We'll vote. One negative vote. Next item, Mr. Winger, in Mr. Couch's absence, would you like to give us an update and a status report?
I would be happy to. We are obviously in a very peak period of construction design, and I think we reported these figures before. I would expect for these to remain at these levels for the next several months, but 23 construction projects, these are active construction projects, 28 active design projects, and then we have 2 that are in the architectural selection. That includes the downtown, and then we're soon to advertise the district administration building, which the project requirements were approved just in the last month. And those are the final projects for the Maps for Kids program. Attached as a part of your packet today, you'll find ADG's monthly report, and there's always included the matrix of projects. And so what's listed on those, and I'll call your attention, those are all the projects that are included. So you can kind of get a very quick update by looking at the horizontal completion bars, if I might describe them as that, to kind of show you the general status. You'll see there's a lot of completion on a lot of the projects. There's 6 that we're actually preparing to open this fall. They're running about a month and a half or 2 behind schedule. But then we also have 6 that are going to be bid in this next month to 6 weeks, coming out of design and going into construction. Of the schools that we had intended to open for the school year, which for most of the schools in Oklahoma City begins on Thursday, we had 2, and you might have noticed this in the newspaper this morning. Lee and Edwards Elementary are not far enough along that the school is comfortable to actually put students back in both of those. And so those students have been temporarily relocated to other facilities. The contractors are still working diligently to get this work completed as quickly as possible, and we're working with them to do so. So it's definitely an inconvenience for both of those schools and those attendance areas, with those parents having to take students to an alternate location. In the case of Edwards, they're going to the new Martin Luther King that was constructed as a part of Maps for Kids. On Lee Elementary, they're going west to the renovated Heronville that we also completed, and so there's space at both of those facilities to accommodate these students. We took bids this morning on Eugene Field School. There is an early roofing package that is underway at that school now that's nearing completion. The bids this morning were not favorable, and we had 6 bids received on this project. We were anticipating the project to come within its estimated budget of about $3.4 million, and the low bid was at $4.1. And so about over $700,000 over the budget. Obviously, on a project of this size, it's raised concerns, and so we're actually doing an assessment now. Bring back additional information in the future. I don't want to guess on a recommendation that might be made, but one of the issues that we are seeing is that some of the mechanical contractors and some of the mechanical work that's being required in our schools is quite extensive and is more than we thought it would be. In the case for this, that's what the early indications are, is that the budget that was designed to and the amount that the bid was received may have actually doubled in this case. And so we're trying to get a firm grip on that and understand what that effect is, not just for this project, but we're actually bidding Buchanan next week and others to follow, and so we want to make sure that we address any current needs. And so I'll bring back a future report to try to give you a better understanding of our current bid market.
Is that probably because of some of the high demand due to the storms that we had earlier in the summer?
You know, we're having a hard time trying to understand that, and that's possible. In the case of the bids that were received on Northwest Classen last week, there was only one mechanical contractor bidding to those 5 general contractors. This week we saw 2. Some of the other early indications that we have is that at Eugene Field, it's almost an entire replacement of the mechanical system at that school, so it's quite complicated when we discuss the phasing schedule, how to maintain students in that school while we're replacing mechanical equipment. And I think that's probably come into play on this project too. But over 20% over budget, I mean, it's one of those that's going to take a lot harder look, and we'll bring back a recommendation one way or the other on this project.
You said there were 6 generals?
We had 6 this morning, yes. And you know, it's our typical group that has been bidding with us each and every week, and so it's you know, it's definitely a market condition that's changed, and I wish we understood it better so that I could give you a better report, but we really are lacking some information, and hopefully some things will come to light very soon.
Other questions?
In general, do you think that we are in ourselves impacting the construction market by the number of projects that are coming to bid at the same time?
It's a very interesting question. So I do think that could be the case for certain contractors. So last week, the low bid for Northwest Classen was W.O. McNatt. The high bid this week was W.L. McNatt. So, I mean, obviously, as we increase the workload and take on some of the bonding capacity of these general contractors, they're no longer as competitive because they can't any longer take on that new work. So that's very possible and probably probable that that's one of the instances that's happening. I've been assured that the work at the Devon Tower is not impacting our work. There are really two different levels of construction. So we also questioned that early on, whether we were losing subcontractors to that larger project, but that doesn't appear to be the case. And as I learn more, I'll definitely bring that back to you. The only other update that I wanted to provide for you this afternoon, we've had some periodic updates regarding the facility group lawsuit that we've been in for over a year and a half, and I'm pleased to report to you today that early this week, the state Supreme Court, which the case was appealed to from district court, dismissed that case. They issued an order to FGI approximately 2 weeks ago that established a deadline that they needed to respond by, and the consequence of non-response was that the case would be dismissed and the time or the deadline would not be extended. There was no response filed by FGI, and so early this week we did receive the order of the Supreme Court that the case has been dismissed. So from advice of legal counsel, it's over. So please provide that update. Can answer any other questions that you might have.
Any other questions? Do you have your report from ADG? Are there any comments by trustees, staff, citizens? Seeing none, we're adjourned. Thank you.